Imagine a tank that never needs refueling. A war machine capable of crossing continents without stopping. A steel monster powered not by diesel or gasoline, but by the same force that powers cities, submarines, and even nuclear weapons. During the Cold War, military planners genuinely considered this possibility. Engineers imagined atomic-powered tanks rolling across radioactive battlefields in Europe after a nuclear exchange. To them, nuclear energy represented the future of warfare: limitless range, unmatched endurance, and overwhelming power. But despite decades of nuclear innovation, no nation has ever fielded a true nuclear-powered tank. Why? Because the idea quickly transformed from a futuristic dream into a logistical and radioactive nightmare. This is the deep dive into nuclear tank concept, how it could work, why militaries wanted it, and why it may be one of the most dangerous vehicle ideas ever imagined. After the end of World War II and the dawn of the nuclear era, governments became obsessed with atomic technology. The United States had demonstrated the terrifying power of nuclear weapons during the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and soon afterward, nuclear energy began appearing everywhere. Power plants, submarines, aircraft carriers, scientific research, proposed aircraft, and even household product concepts. Now, by the 1950s, many people believed nuclear power would replace conventional fuel entirely. This optimism created bizarre ideas: nuclear-powered airplanes, nuclear trains, nuclear cars, nuclear rockets, and eventually, nuclear tanks. Military strategists saw several major advantages immediately. Modern warfare depends heavily on fuel logistics. Tanks consume enormous amounts of fuel. A modern M1 Abrams burns fuel at astonishing rates, especially during combat operations. Entire supply chains exist solely to keep armored divisions moving, and supply lines are vulnerable. Destroy the fuel supply, and even the strongest army grinds to a halt. A nuclear-powered tank seemed like the perfect solution. The theoretical benefits were incredible: operational range measured in years, reduced fuel convoys, massive onboard electrical generation, superior endurance, continuous battlefield presence. During the Cold War, NATO and Soviet planners expected that Europe could become a radioactive battlefield after nuclear exchanges. In such an environment, conventional logistics might collapse entirely. Atomic tanks suddenly sounded useful. If fuel depots were destroyed by nuclear strikes, reactor-powered vehicles could continue operating. To Cold War strategists, this was not science fiction, it was military planning. A nuclear-powered tank would not run directly on radiation or explosions. Instead, it would use a compact nuclear reactor to generate heat. That heat could boil water into steam, drive turbines, generate electricity, power electric motors. This is similar to how nuclear submarines and aircraft carriers operate today. The problem is scale. Naval reactors are enormous systems with dedicated crews, shielding, and cooling infrastructure. Compressing this technology into a moving armored vehicle is extraordinarily difficult. A hypothetical nuclear tank would likely include a miniature reactor, radiation shielding, cooling system, turbine generators, electric drive systems, emergency containment systems. The vehicle would probably be significantly larger than current tanks like the Leopard 2 or T-90. And that leads directly to the greatest problem of all. Nuclear reactors constantly produce dangerous radiation. The most threatening types include gamma radiation and neutron radiation. Without protection, the crew inside the tank would receive lethal doses. This means the tank would require heavy shielding, and not just a little shielding. A safe reactor typically requires thick layers of lead, steel, boron compounds, specialized composites, water barriers. On submarines, this is manageable because submarines are huge. On a tank, every ton matters. Modern tanks already weigh 60 to 75 tons. Adding reactor shielding could push a nuclear tank far beyond practical limits. The vehicle might become too heavy for bridges, too slow for maneuver warfare, mechanically unreliable, difficult to transport. And even if engineers reduced shielding, crews could suffer long-term radiation exposure. In other words, the tank designed to survive battle might slowly kill its own operators. Now imagine the tank gets hit. Modern anti-tank weapons are devastating. Weapons like kinetic penetrators, shaped charges, top attack missiles can rip through heavy armor. If a conventional tank is destroyed, the damage is localized. If a nuclear tank is destroyed, the consequences could become catastrophic. The reactor might rupture, scatter radioactive material, contaminate terrain, irradiate nearby troops. A destroyed nuclear tank could effectively become a dirty bomb on the battlefield. Entire operational zones might become hazardous. Friendly forces could be exposed. Civilian areas could become contaminated for years. The political consequences alone would be enormous. No government wants headlines announcing that one of its tanks spread radioactive material across a combat zone. There is another massive issue. Heat generate tremendous thermal energy continuously. Even with advanced cooling systems, a nuclear tank would produce a gigantic infrared signature. On a modern battlefield dominated by drones, thermal imaging, infrared targeting systems, and satellites, this will make the vehicle extremely easy to detect. Stealth matters enormously in modern warfare. In trying to solve fuel logistics, militaries would create one of the easiest armor targets imaginable. Conventional tanks are already maintenance-intensive machines. Now add nuclear engineering to the equation. A nuclear tank would require reactor technicians, radiation safety teams, specialized repair facilities, and decontamination procedures. Nuclear transport infrastructure. Every damaged tank becomes a nuclear emergency. Field repairs would become vastly more dangerous and complicated. Imagine trying to recover a disabled nuclear reactor power tank under enemy fire while wearing radiation protection equipment. The logistical burden becomes absurd. Ironically, the tank designed to reduce logistics may create even larger logistical problems. Although no operational nuclear tank was ever built, the idea was seriously discussed during the Cold War. Both the United States and Soviet Union explored compact reactor concepts for military vehicles. The Soviet Union especially experimented with extreme armored vehicle concepts because Soviet doctrine anticipated fighting in nuclear-contaminated environments. Meanwhile, American engineers studied whether miniaturized reactors could support heavy military platforms. But the deeper researchers went, the worse the trade-offs became. Every solution created another problem. More shielding increased weight. Less shielding endangered crews. Bigger cooling systems increased visibility. Reactor safety systems consumed space, and battlefield survivability remained questionable. Eventually, military planners realized that conventional engines were simply more practical. Interestingly, nuclear-powered vehicles do exist successfully today, just not on land. Nuclear submarines like the USS Nautilus, SSN 571, revolutionized naval warfare. Why do submarines work while tanks do not? Because the oceans solves many reactor problems automatically. Water provides natural cooling, radiation absorption, immense space, stable operating conditions. Submarines also avoid many battlefield dangers faced by tanks. They are not constantly exposed to missiles, mines, artillery, kinetic penetrators. A submarine is essentially a mobile nuclear facility designed around its reactor. A tank is a compact combat vehicle designed for chaos. The environments were completely different. Modern technology has improved significantly since the Cold War. Today, scientists are developing microreactors, compact modular reactors, advanced reactor cooling systems, and some are far smaller than older nuclear systems. This has revived occasional discussions about nuclear land vehicles. However, physics still imposes brutal limitations. Even a tiny reactor still produces radiation, heat, contamination, and modern anti-tank weapons are far deadlier than Cold War systems. A futuristic reactor-powered tank would still face catastrophic risks if penetrated. Miniaturization helps, but it does not erase the core problems. Ironically, militaries may achieve many nuclear tank benefits without using nuclear reactors at all. Modern armored vehicles are increasingly exploring hybrid propulsion, electric drive systems, advanced batteries, reduced fuel consumption. Electric systems provide several advantages: quieter movement, lower heat signatures, reduced maintenance, high torque performance. Some future tanks may operate partially like giant armored electric vehicles. And unlike nuclear reactors, batteries do not turn destroyed vehicles into radioactive hazards. The path is far more realistic. There is one version of the concept that could theoretically work better: unmanned nuclear tanks. Remove the human crew, and several major problems disappear. Less shielding required, no radiation exposure concerns, small internal space needs. An autonomous nuclear combat vehicle could potentially operate for years in hostile environments. This might become useful in Arctic warfare, post-nuclear environments, extreme long-duration operations. However, even unmanned systems still face contamination risks, thermal detection, catastrophic destruction scenarios. And giving autonomous machines mobile reactors introduces terrifying ethical and security concerns. A hacked or destroyed nuclear drone tank could become an international disaster. There is another issue militaries rarely ignore: the public fear. Nuclear technology terrifies people. Even peaceful nuclear energy remains politically controversial in many countries. Now imagine nuclear reactors driving through cities during wartime. Public acceptance would likely collapse instantly after the first accident. A single destroyed reactor tank could trigger mass panic, environmental outrage, international condemnation. In modern information warfare, perception matters almost as much as battlefield effectiveness, and nuclear tanks would carry a terrifying image. In the end, the nuclear tank failed because it violated a basic rule of military engineering. A weapon must solve more problem than it creates. Nuclear tanks promised endurance, power, independence from fuel supply, but they introduced radiation hazards, thermal visibility, extreme maintenance, contamination risks, enormous costs, political disaster potential. The drawbacks simply outweighed the benefits. Conventional engines improved faster and cheaper. Meanwhile, missiles became more lethal. The battlefield became more sensor-driven, and the nuclear tank slowly faded into the category of fascinating but impractical Cold War dreams. The idea of a nuclear-powered tank remains one of the most fascinating what-if concepts in military history. It perfectly captures the mindset of the atomic age, the belief that nuclear-powered could solve nearly every technological challenge. For a brief period, humanity imagined a future where reactors powered everything: cars, planes, trains, even battlefield armor. But reality intervened. Physics, engineering, logistics, and warfare all combined to make nuclear tanks deeply impractical. Yet, the concept still fascinates people because it feels like something from science fiction. An unstoppable armored machine rolling endlessly across ruined landscapes beneath radioactive skies. And perhaps that is why the nuclear tank survives today. Not as a real weapon of war, but as a symbol of humanity's strange and dangerous obsession with atomic power. If you've enjoyed this deep dive into the terrifying reality of nuclear-powered warfare, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more massive sci-fi and military breakdowns. And tell me in the comments, if technology advanced far enough, would you trust a nuclear-powered tank on the battlefield? Or would it become the most dangerous machine ever built?